Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
All right, Rob Browne here with you on this Monday morning. And what a weekend, college football. God bless America. If you didn't watch any football, we'll make you a fan in the next 2 hours. Sidelines here 6 days a week, over 300 shows a year. Repetition's the mother of all skill. That's what we do. We talk about it. We get the best guests, engage them, get them to talk about teams they cover and the big picture of college football. Mitch Davis is going to join us in the first segment, followed by Yancy Porter, Rebel Yell Hotline. He'll check in from Oxford. Yancy and I had a lot of talk. He called me after the Auburn-Alabama game, the Iron Bowl Saturday. I'll tell you one thing. That was a tough one, but Florida State was a tough one. Georgia Tech was a tough one. If you are a true fan, you're going to get mad. You're going to get upset after a loss. That's part of the deal. But don't give up on your team. And it is frustrating, but better days are ahead if you believe in it and if you support the program. Most of the people that I hear doing the bitching and the moaning are not season ticket holders. They're not investors. They are merely takers from programs. Okay. Just think about that. Those are the people. They make a lot of noise, but they're not influential. So we're all mad. If you're an Auburn fan, Kevin Skarbinski said it best. Auburn's defensive staff, the coaches, Hugh Freeze, the whole staff that made that call to only rush 2 against Alabama have replaced Bruce Arians, former Alabama assistant back in, I guess, the 97 Iron Bowl, making that late pass that Ed Sissom from Etowah County High School, I think Gadsden, was hit by Martavius Houston out of Lauderdale Lakes, Florida, Boyd Anderson High School, and Takeo Spikes, and Auburn recovered a fumble. Jared Holmes, the kicker out of Madison, Mississippi, went to Mississippi College, kicked it. Auburn won 18-17. The Auburn coaching staff now, who called to only rush 2, now, as Kevin Skarbinski said, have the new title of worst call in Iron Bowl history. But that's life, and a damn thing you can do about it. You better get better players, and you got to give credit to that Alabama receiver. As Raymond in Huntsville said, the Alabama player probably was a yard out of bounds, but he was such a badass athlete, an all-American athlete. He made the play to keep his feet in bounds. That is a lot of time in the weight room and discipline, and you got to give him credit for making the play. 7 seconds Jalen Milroe had. That's about twice as long as normal. But the Auburn pass rushers were playing patty cake with the Alabama offensive linemen. Still, there's not enough Ham's beer in the world that'll get that memory out of my head. But life goes on. Let's bring him in, Mitch Davis. And hour number 2, don't forget, we will have Franz Beard, GatorBaitMedia.com. Will check in with us, as well as Wess Moore, ESPN 103.7 The Buzz in Little Rock. Mitch, I'll tell you one thing. I like this. I like what's going on down there in Starkville. You've been on top of it. And all these rivalry games, there's one speech I will never forget, and no matter what happens, you play hard. And that's the Coach died in 1981. Auburn lost to Tennessee 10-7 in Knoxville. Got down to the 4-yard line with a minute left and couldn't get it in there. And he said, there's going to be a lot of days you come up empty-handed, and a damn thing you can do about it except go out there and lay it on the line again and again and again. You keep fighting like that, you keep believing, we're going to build a foundation we can win around here for a long time with. That's what I saw in these rivalry games, and that's why we love college football. Mitch, here's the ball. Run with it.
Rob, thank you so much for joining me. It's been a hell of a last 4 or 5 days here. The last, since the Egg Bowl kind of wrapped up the coaching search stuff, and was able to get that out on my site on let's see, what was that? Late Saturday night. Put out a couple tweets, and then of course Steve Robertson and the guys, they kind of ran with it on Sunday afternoon. Jeff Levy's the new head coach at Mississippi State. While I was doing that, because I cover the entire SEC on the podcast, the hellfire storm of Mark Stoops leaving Kentucky happened at Kentucky and Texas A&M. For what I hear, that was a done deal. Stoops was out the door, basically on the plane, heading to College Station, and I'm sure we can talk about that. I've got a lot of
add a little bit to that.
So
say a little something about that.
Yeah, so we'll talk about Jeff Lovey, Mississippi State. So here's kind of what I've gathered from the Mark Stoops stuff, and obviously, I think everybody knows that I'm tight with certain athletic directors at Texas A&M and certain people around the country and all that. What I heard is Mark Stoops was out the door. He had told some players, had told some staff that he had taken the Texas A&M job. He was, heading down the College Station. Somehow, some way, I don't know exactly what happened, but I know that the rug was pulled out from underneath him, obviously, and Ross Bjork was not able to hire Mark Stoops. So Mark Stoops was retained as head coach at Kentucky. I think one of the telltale signs of Mark Stoops leaving, and it wasn't one of these, contract extension ploy coup things. It was a legitimate, he was leaving. Was when Kentucky and Mark Stoops came out and basically said that, hey, Mark Stoops is not getting a contract extension. He's not getting any more money. He's going to retain as head coach, but he's not getting a contract extension. So that's always a telltale sign of a coach being out the door, quite literally on his way out to College Station. It was a very weird, crazy 12 hours in Lexington coming off that top 10 win over Louisville. When I heard the reason why he wanted to leave was because, really truthfully be told, he was tired of Coach Cal. The relationship with Coach Cal is very tarnished. And obviously there's going to be 4 or 5 different pictures that are painted by different people. There are going to be people on the outside or there are people on the inside saying, oh no, he was just playing the waters or whatever. They're trying to do that for recruiting. Coach Stoops put out a PR statement that Rob, and you've seen these a billion times. That was coaches speak for basically saying, hey, I don't want to lose any recruits. I don't want to lose any guys in the transfer portal. But Coach Stoops was gone. And the reason why is because the comments that were made by Coach Calipari 2 years ago, about a year and a half, 2 years ago, when Kentucky was in the Bahamas, about Kentucky being a basketball school.
Yeah.
Still pissed off Stoops. It really did. Because he looks at it going, okay, hey, I've taken Kentucky football to heights that unimaginable. And 7-5, 8-4, 9-3, 10-3, a couple of years with Citrus Bowl victories over Penn State and Iowa. Kentucky football was rolling, and Kentucky football has been rolling. They've won 5 straight over Louisville. Mark Stoops has won 3 games over Tennessee, which is unheard of at Kentucky. He's got a 3-game winning streak over Florida. All of these different things. And I'm not saying he's perfect because everybody knows his record against below 500 teams in the SEC.
Yeah.
But I think he just got pissed off because Kentucky they're not putting the resources, in NIL funds. And Rob, I know how, you and the older generation hate the NIL and it's terrible. I get it. I get it. But in order to compete, you got to have some collections. And today you got to adapt. And Kentucky football is behind the 8 ball. Had he gone to Texas A&M, he would have had the resources. I mean, my God, they just paid Jimbo Fisher $75 million to keep his ass solid. I mean, it is what it is. He would have had the resources to win a national championship. He understands that at Kentucky, he's probably never going to have that opportunity to win a national championship. He might maybe compete in the playoffs when the playoffs expand. But he would never have a chance to win a natty at Kentucky because he would have to go up against Georgia, Alabama, LSU. That's just in the SEC. Then you go outside the SEC, you've got Michigan, Ohio State, Washington, as long as their coaching staff is out there. So programs that have always been there and have always recruited well, Coach Stoops would have to go against those guys. Texas A&M, he would have the resources to compete for a national championship. And I think that is kind of one of those things that Coach Stoops was out the door, and I think people need to realize that Mark Stoops was leaving. I mean, he was gone. And do I think it's going to hurt recruiting? I don't know. It's too early to tell. The basketball comments a year and a half ago kind of hurt recruiting. I don't know how this is going to be used. I know that opposing coaches are going to say, well, hey, this guy was he was out the door. Why would you want to go play for a coach that's already planning on leaving at the University of Kentucky? We already know how the recruiting is going to be. I see a comment here. How can Mark Stoops show his face in public after sleeping with A&M? I don't know, man. That it is a very toxic thing. And I don't know the solution, Rob, but I have said in private circles that maybe Kentucky, Dr. Eli Capilouto, the president, maybe it's one of those things where he needs to clean house completely. Maybe it's, get rid of Mitch Barnhart, get rid of Cal, get rid of Stoops, and kind of start over, because there is such a toxic environment. Cal and Stoops don't have a relationship. Cal and Mitch Barnhart don't have a relationship. Or maybe you fire Cal, you put the money and you put the resources into NIL for football, let basketball take its own little thing, and really become a member of the SEC. Kentucky has always been so far behind when it comes to football in terms of the SEC. I mean, they've gotten better over the last 10 years under Stoops, but they don't have the NIL resources. They don't have the really, truthfully, the money to compete with the Georgias of the world. I mean, and nowadays, Robin, much as we want to say we hate it and don't like it, the reality of it is guys are buying recruits left and right. They're paying them to come to play at the university. It is what it is. So Kentucky wants to compete. They do need to get with the times here in college football.
Well, they do. And you think about this, Mark Stoops, Kentucky had a similar situation years ago when Coach Bryant said, they gave Coach Rupp a Cadillac and I got a watch. And he left and went on to do some pretty big things. I recall the name Paul W. Bryant was quite successful. Stupid is as stupid does. Coach Cal has a lifetime contract. Basically, it's called, and I was born on home plate, and I think I hit a grand slam. That you don't do that to anybody.
No.
In my practice working with wealthy people, if you give a kid a bunch of money, they're going to burn it up through their nose, with weed, you name it. They're going to piss it away. I worked with the smartest attorney, Barry Blackburn, rest his soul, for 20 years, about 1,000 meetings. He would tell people point blank, I know you love your kids, but don't love them to death. Don't kill their incentive to get out of bed in the morning.
Yeah.
And that's what these lifetime contracts do. And Kentucky just has to hold their nose and look the other way. It's like when people vote for president in the United States now. It's like the lesser of two evils. It's a joke. Okay. But with Bob Stoops, to me, it's bad. And I see another comment here from Mighty Joe Young. I'm gonna put this one up here. You go and you think about a hire like that. Mark Stoops to Texas A&M and then back to UK is like Pat Sullivan to LSU and then back to TCU. That happened, 30 years ago. You burn bridges that I don't think you can rebuild them. And now, how legitimate is Stoops' recruiting sales pitch going to be in the living room of recruits?
Not very. I mean, because, he is – I wouldn't say he's angered the UK fans. UK fans, and Robin, my family history with Kentucky, and my entire dad's side of the family are all Kentucky fans. The fan base is so dadgum divided that on one side you have your Kentucky fans that love basketball, that want basketball to always be the king of the bluegrass, and then you have your other half who love football, who want football to, continue to compete in the SEC. And the way that the both coaches and the athletic director, Mitch Barnhart, have handled this, both can't coexist right now. And it is sad. It happens at other, universities. Look at Alabama, look at Auburn, Florida, Tennessee. All those programs coexist. I mean, I can remember when Bruce Pearl was on Rocky Top, and he would, go to the women's basketball painted up and his old fat hairy chest, and had a big V on there in orange and white. That does not happen at Kentucky. I don't know why. It used to. Cal has gotten very entitled, and Kentucky fans are having to pick and choose between, okay, do we support basketball? Do we support football? Publicly, Rob, if I'm going to be 100% honest, as a fan, and I want to spend some time talking about Mississippi State, so hopefully this will be my last thing I can say about UK. But as a fan, I refuse to support basketball until change is made, because I realize as a fan how important football is, because football is what makes the SEC, and basketball is not. Basketball is important. I think it's a great thing. But Cal, he did this at Memphis. Tommy Wess struggled to get funding for Memphis football, while Coach Cal and the basketball team, they were continually getting funding from Memphis State. Cal did this at UMass. There's a track record. I don't know the exact answer. I don't know why. I just know that Kentucky basketball, there's got to be a change. There has got to be, either you're going to lose Stoops to Iowa or somewhere like that, or basketball is going to continue to do what basketball does and may or may not make it past the first round of the NCAA tournament from here on out.
Well, I think Kentucky has not won a national championship since 2012.
Yeah.
And all that talent, the one and done deal, the Kentucky fans, that's below their standard. They won 8 national championships. I mean, they're them in Kansas, Duke, North Carolina, Indiana. Temple's the 5th winningest program in the history of college basketball, but they're not getting the return on investment that they should with what they spend. But here's another one. Jimmy in Memphis. Can Stoops be charged with solicitation? Well, we know, that is a crime if you're, pull over to the side of the street on the curb and a lot lizard is out there and you inquire about the hourly rate. I mean, this is a bad deal for him. And if I'm Kentucky, I don't take him back. You don't do it. And it's like, you're married and I don't know. That's, everybody deals with that individually. I'm not going to get into that, but it's a bad situation. Look, let's switch gears too. This Jeff Lebby hire, I think I like that. What somebody said, William, I don't know where Mississippi State made a big boy hire. I've watched Lebby, and Lane Kiffin is maybe the best play caller there. He's great.
He's also the biggest whiny crybaby in college football. That dude, all he does is complain. That's it.
Well, I don't, they all, you got to look, you get beat, you just get better players. Okay. But I'll say this, Jeff Lebby, when he was at Ole Miss with Matt Corral, he was a huge part of that success. And we saw in the Sugar Bowl, even though he was there when they played Baylor, and Dave Aranda and Ron Roberts, that creeper defense, they weren't the same because he had checked out. He was already, thinking about Oklahoma. I think it's how excited are you about this hire?
I'm very. I wanted Jamie Chadwell first. That Jamie Chadwell is my first choice because I have a long-standing history with Jamie Chadwell. He's a good friend of the podcast, and my cousin played for him, and I love Jamie Chadwell. Love what he's building at Liberty. But my second choice is Jeff Lebby. This guy is going to score and score and score and then score some more. It's all going to come down to who he hires as defensive coordinator, who he hires to run the offense while he's, maintaining being the CEO of the football program. But I don't know, Rob, if you saw it last night, but as Lebby got off the plane there in Starkville, the players lifted Zach Selman on their shoulders and were very happy, very eager, very excited to get Lebby there to kind of implement this exciting offense and this exciting brand of Mississippi State football. And one thing to watch out for, and you mentioned Lane Kiffin, is the history that Lebby and Lane Kiffin have between each other. It's not that breakup when Lebby left Ole Miss to go to Oklahoma was not a pretty one. It seems and it appears that Lane Kiffin does still have feelings about Jeff Lebby. I know he got on Twitter last night and was quite literally fat shaming Lebby for being a fat guy. Basically said that, oh, I knew you missed the food down here, so we all knew you were coming back. And Ole Miss people are being Ole Miss people. They're saying, oh, well, leave it to Mississippi State to hire an Ole Miss guy. He was in Oxford for a season and a half. It really wasn't. He's not an Ole Miss guy. He went to Oklahoma and played football at Oklahoma. He went to a more prestigious, a better program at Oklahoma. I'm excited, man. I'm excited to get him in Starkville. I'm excited to get the Egg Bowl back to being toxic again. It's always fun when those two teams hate each other. It's always fun when the coaches hate each other. I don't know who he's going to hire for defensive coordinator, but that's a big deal. I've heard DJ Durkin mentioned. I've heard Matt Canada mentioned. So there's a lot of interesting names. I've heard. I don't know if Baylor signed Dave Arnanda yet for defense or to bring him back as head coach at Baylor. But I've also heard that if Baylor does not bring Arnanda back as head coach at Baylor, that Arnanda is a name to watch out for at Mississippi State to be the next defensive coordinator of the Bulldogs.
Well, there's a lot. There's so much stuff going on. And Frank Duffy, you want to check in with us right now up in North Georgia in the mountains. And, Mitch and Frank, I don't know if you were hearing what was going on, but this Jeff Lebby hire, you had Mike Leach, and I think there was a mutual respect between him and Kiffin. I think they were literally friends.
Yeah.
I would think that Kiffin and Lebby have a good relationship, but who knows? But look, the rivalry, the one thing you watching that Iron Bowl game, Nick Saban and Hugh Freeze, they are friends. And when Freeze was out of coaching, Nick Saban and Kirby Smart spent a lot of time with him. And that's one of the things Kirby Smart and Hugh Freeze and Nick Saban all know. When you do that, you got to remember, okay, now these guys are back in coaching. There's some really good coaches in this league, Mitch. And I know you're talking about that A&M deal. Frank has been licking his chops to jump in here. Mitch, Frank, MitchDavisShow.com.
Mitch is one of the up-and-coming talents in this business.
I appreciate that.
You really are.
So very talented. I love being on with him. He's a very insightful young man. I will tell you, as you know, I don't have a website. I don't have a business in this thing.
You're on sidelines. You're part of the team.
My job is to just be entertainment. It's the reason why SEC Shorts joked, who let the Cajuns sober up and do science to get air-conditioned football helmets? My job on here is just to be lighthearted entertainment, right? However, Rob, in the 4.5 years since I've been coming on, since I debated Phyllis from Mulga, the Alabama, God rest her soul, when I debated her on my very first time on your show, right before the LSU 2019 Alabama game, which propelled us to the national championship. It was my very first time. Have I ever asked you to be on? Have I ever? In all that time?
Which one?
I'm asking you, have I ever, in all those 4 years of being a contributor to your show, have I ever asked you, can I come on?
We always love you being on.
No. But have I ever proactively asked to do it? I've never done that.
Yeah. But on this one, no. You got the green light since
I asked Rob. I said, Rob, I feel compelled to come on today.
Yeah,
because I'm fresh off of the LSU Texas A&M game. Now again, they are our rivals. We kind of have been holding them up for Texas to now come in and pummel them in the bar fight and just drop them. Right? We've been just kind of holding them up, pounding them. Right? We've been killing them every year at the end of the year. But I absolutely have been apoplectic in watching what's going on to the west. What is it? Past the Sabine River, which is the dividing line between Texas and Louisiana. I think it's the Sabine. Don't quote me. But what is going on in Aggie land is absolutely sheer delusion, right? Never has a group thought so much highly of themselves over so little since the Georgia Bulldogs did it for 35 years until they finally started paying off. Texas A&M, are you kidding me? Wait a minute, hang on a second. You thought Kirby Smart was going to leave Georgia to come because y'all were going to tap another oil well? You got to be kidding. And wait a minute, hang on a second. You took Mark Stoops and decided not to hire a guy. That's like Thurston Howell III thumbing his nose up at a self-made man, a young man, because he wants to date your daughter because he's an alt-right club? Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Man, you guys need a wellness check over there. You need to grab some of those orderlies running around in those white uniforms and let them put you in a straitjacket. What the hell's going on over there?
That's a good question, honestly.
Mitch, I mean, are you kidding me? Now look, it might be a great hire, but when you had Mark Stoops, and look, about to change, tell his fan base that he's about to leave, uproot his family. My wife said, you got to calm down. We're all on business calls out here. But to uproot his family in the middle of the night, and then you pull it away because Buckles McHenry, who has to tap another oil well, doesn't like the choice. You know why you're a grease fire and have been a grease fire? Because you let your fan base, your delusional fan base, who hasn't been good since John David Crow in 1957, make your decisions for you. Shame on you. I mean, it's ridiculous. So you know what? I hate serial quitter Max Johnson quitting his second team now to go to his third. I think that's what's wrong with college football right now. But you know what? I don't blame him. I'd get out of there too. I mean, man, you guys are a grease fire. So look, Olin, I love you, brother. I love you in Texas Ags. Y'all, for the most part, I love Texas people. But the guys that are in that smoke-filled room in College Station, sitting in the leather chairs, tapping a well here, tapping a well there, only to waste it. Might as well be a dumpster fire floating down, the Brazos on fire. Y'all need to get a reality check. And by the way, the first step I've been told is admitting there's a problem. And when you think you're too good for Mark Stoops, brother, that's a problem.
Yeah. Mitch, respond to that.
I agree wholeheartly. And obviously as a Kentucky fan, it was bittersweet because I thought Stoops was gone and, I hate it. But I get why he left Cal and all that stuff that happened with basketball. But Texas A&M fans, they are just as delusional as Tennessee fans. I mean, Tennessee fans, they stopped the hiring of Gref Schiano because they thought that they were higher than mighty. But then Jeremy Pruitt comes in there and they does what Jeremy Pruitt did. Between A&M, Ole Miss, and Tennessee, those three are probably the most delusional fan bases in the SEC, with the exception of Kentucky basketball fans. Because we'll go. I'm a Kentucky fan myself, but I have drawn the line in the sand and said, hey, look, until Cal is gone, until Cal is fired, I can't support what he is standing for.
Well,
and for lack of a better term, shitting on football. I mean, that's what.
Well, the most delusional fan base for 35 years was the Georgia Bulldogs. They were hands down the most delusional football fan base that there was, right?
And Texas A&M is a cult. I mean, that is a cult. Rob might kill me on that one. I'm going to get Rob in trouble.
Explain those cheers. That's what I don't understand. I love the A&M fans that I know. I love them. They are so loyal and cool, but their administration.
They need to stop the midnight cheer lessons and go get some rest. They need some rest, man. They need a wellness check. That's what they need. They don't need to be up there practicing, yelling into the middle of the night out there in Southeast Texas. They need a wellness check, man. Well, and let me tell you.
Well, here's the thing.
It's beyond me. I mean, look, and they let Jimbo go for as long as they did. And then they re-upped him just because he beat Bama. Okay, well, what do you expect? And by the way, not only the rumor of them going after Kirby, which is just beyond laughable. I do believe the AD, again, don't quote me on this. I'm alleging this. This is alleged, not fact. But I do believe the rep who reps the AD and the higher ups also is the rep for Jimbo, and I think Mark Stoops. Yeah. So from what I understand, I'm not saying there's a raging fire, but I'm smelling the smoke wafting eastward that there might be some issues coming up legally without the way this was all handled behind the scenes.
Mitch?
I've heard that.
I've heard.
I got good sources.
I've heard bits and pieces of that. I will say that the Jeff Levy stuff at Mississippi State kept me up until 3 o'clock on Saturday night because I was writing an article and getting ready and ready for Jeff Levy. So I haven't been able to talk to a whole lot of people in the last 24 hours. I'm trying to do that while also my grandfather's in the hospital with dementia and getting worse and worse by the day. So I'm kind of going all over the place a little bit. But Mark Stoops, he was gone. He was one, and the reason he was gone is because he had more resources at Texas A&M, and because he is so sick and tired of Coach Calipari at Kentucky.
Sure,
he just
they're oil and water. They're oil and water.
The fan base is so divided, Frank. I was telling Rob, my family, we are my dad's whole side are Kentucky fans. Every single one of them are Kentucky fans. Half of our group chat, quite literally, we have a group chat with all 12 of us guys in the family. 6 of them are supporting basketball. 6 of them have said, hey, Cal needs to go. Let's support football more. I'm on the 6 that says Cal needs to go. Let's support football. Our fan base, and this is why I believe, and really truthfully, I don't know if this is the answer, but I believe that Dr. Capilouto, the president of the University of Kentucky, should clean house. Clean house, get rid of Barnhart, get rid of Coach Cal. And if Stoops wants to go to Iowa, if he wants to go to, somewhere like that, let him go, because you can't blame the guy when he hasn't had the resources and you haven't given him the money to compete in the NIL space yet.
Yeah, let me throw this. I like Kelly Leak's comment. The fellas in the nervous hospital uniforms, the white uniforms, the cheerleaders have taken over at at Texas A&M. Look, this is what gets me. You have to have strong leadership. And, like, people can say what they want, but when Bobby Louder at Auburn was in charge, and helping to lead the board of trustees at Auburn, in the 29 years he was there, Auburn was 16-13 against Alabama. And you can say that there were bad coaches at Alabama, whatever. You can't just pick and choose when you want to get a win. You can't say, well, we weren't good or we were bad or whatever. You take it like it is, okay? Leadership. You got to have leadership. And Mitch and Frank, great commentary by Frank. Frank's gets the Brother Theodore Award from the old Letterman show. That man, it was crazy.
Well, here's
A&M. What I don't understand. 100 million for a stupid coach.
Many would go on Letterman. The rats and the slogans here. No, listen. Let me tell you. You know what?
Brother Theodore, Mitch, on YouTube.
That's funny.
You'll love him.
He was in a movie called The Burbs with Tom Hanks that was really, really funny, and Henry Gibson. Let me tell you what Texas A&M is. Texas A&M is the jerk in the Dodge Charger who comes flying up from behind when you're on the highway, and he does 120, and he blows past the poor people that are driving, trying to keep their family alive in the family trucks. You're going on a trip, and he doesn't get in a wreck, but he causes 10 people behind him to get a wreck. They ruined Mark Stoops. Yeah. Ruined him for Kentucky. And here's a guy. Look, I don't know Mark Stoops from Adams House Cat. I like Bob Stoops. I like Mark Stoops. I know they're a football family, but he strikes me as a self-made guy.
Yes.
Right? A blue-collar guy steps into a program where, again, going back to Hal Mummy, going back to Morris, all the coaches that Kentucky has had. Go back to, what was it? Not Corzo. What the guy in the sea? Frank. Frank. I'm having
the name. Back in the 70s.
Yeah, Frank. I can't remember his name now. but you go back to those coaches. All the Kentucky football coaches have all had Rich Brooks, all have had chips on their shoulder because they all knew they had the second program at that school.
Yeah.
They all did. And when Kentucky had success in football, right? that was an amazing thing to watch, because I sat in Commonwealth Stadium 3 years ago when Coach O took his eyes off the prize at LSU. Don't get me started on that, right? but we went in there and we got our pants pulled down by Mark Stoops. That was a beat down. That reminded me of the Spurrier days when Spurrier would beat us so bad we were done by the middle of the second quarter and they were jingling keys in Bell Hill Griffith Stadium. That's how bad Kentucky beat us 2.5 seasons ago. To do that and to ruin Mark Stoops and to make him that offer, and then now he's got to deal with what he's got already with Coach Cal and that smarmy, that deal. Shame on Texas A&M. You know what? If you don't have the fortitude, what's the old saying? If you're going to take the shot, you better know what it is. It's from Glengarry Glen Ross. You don't open your mouth unless you know what the shot is. You child. You lack of manhood. That was a great part by what's his name? Not De Niro, but the other one, the other great actor. Senior moments.
Which one?
Not De Niro, but the other Italian.
Mark
played in The Graduate. Not Dustin Hoffman. No, not The Graduate. In Godfather.
Oh, The Godfather, Al Pacino.
Pacino. So that great line was, "You child. You're in a world of men. You
Frankie.
Never take the shot unless you know what it is. You never open up your mouth, Williamson." Yeah. Well, that's what A&M did. And now they look like buffoons. They put Kentucky and Stoops in a bad situation. Shame on them. Yeah. Shame on them. That's the best you guys got? Because a few of the orderlies got their whiteys in a tight wad?
Yeah. Hey, Frank, hold on. Mitch, I know you got to check out and put on your banker super cape. Let people know where you work, and in addition to doing a great podcast, this is great stuff. Look, we want opinions on here. And for the record, I think Frank, Mitch, we all agree this. We know A&M fans. They're great people. I mean, I've got some great listeners out and viewers out in A&M. They're not the problem. It's that administration. It is. Yeah, and it's frustrating because Olin Buchanan, TexAgs.com, he got mad at us because I think they're just tired of hearing it.
Sure, they're tired of it.
About A&M, and it's not the fans, they're not the problem. It's this administration. How did Ross Bajork keep his job? He signed Jimbo. Look, in the military, if a platoon leader, second lieutenant, has 60 men under his command, and Mitch goes out and gets a DUI, whose fault is it? It's the platoon leader's fault. He's going to be graded by his superiors.
Sure.
Mitch, great stuff, Mitch. Look, I know this got kind of wild today. Frank and I
like it, baby. I like it. Let's roll.
Brother Theodore down there in the corner from North Georgia. You must understand it. God, Letterman would just look at him like, "Oh my God, this guy's unreal."
Hey, it was an Aggie. It was an old Aggie joke. A corny Aggie joke come to life. And by the way, you think it's bad now? Wait till Texas shows up. You think they're making stupid moves now? Wait till the inferiority complex of having Big Brother show up.
Yeah.
And you're right. The ones that have suffered the most, and Mitch will probably agree, it's the good Aggie fans who are now suffering and have been suffering.
Yeah, I'm with you, Mitch. That's a good column you might want to write because you're putting out a lot of really rich content. And don't back down. Not to borrow the line from Tom Petty. I know you're not a Gator fan, but Franz Beard played middle school football with Tommy Petty. He'll be on here in a few minutes.
That's pretty cool.
He's gonna be on with us in a minute. But I'm gonna tell you, Mitch, you're doing great stuff. Again, First Amendment free speech is alive and well and fervently and revered on sidelines. So have at it.
Rob, Frank, it's always good to see you, buddy. I gotta get down to Baton Rouge for baseball or something this spring. I want to come hang out with you. I'll bring some bourbon.
You got it.
Rob, thank you so much as always for coming on. If there are any Ole Miss fans or Kentucky basketball fans that want to slide my DMs today, follow me on Twitter, MitchDavis_8. I'll pull a Bo Wallace. I'll tell you where I'm sitting in the press row on Sunday afternoon when I'm at the hump. So if you want to come pull up on me, let's talk, baby. Let's go. So
Love it.
I appreciate everybody. It's themitchdavisshow.com. I'm going to have Connor O'Gara on Thursday.
Love him.
Talking SEC championship, and then Jared Redding from Inside the Rebels. Preview Memphis and Ole Miss on Saturday. Also, if anybody's going to be there, I'll be at the Vaught Hemingway Stadium on Saturday all day for the state football championships here in the state of Mississippi. So looking forward to going out there and looking forward to watching a lot of great matchups. Louisville and the Colby County play. I know Starkville is over there. So it should be a really, really fun weekend of football here in the SIP. So we're looking
What
forward
county is Starkville in? Octavia County.
Yeah. So
I love that.
What's actually funny, there's two high schools there. One's a 4A and one's 7A in Starkville High. And both of them, I think, are now playing in the state championships. And then Louisville, not Louisville, not where my dad's from, Louisville, Mississippi, they are the county over, the city over from Starkville, and they're playing in the Vaught Hemingway. So there's three or four schools right there in the Starkville area that are going to be playing in the state championships on Saturday. So I appreciate you, Rob. I will look forward to coming back on, Frank. Merry Christmas to you, and I'll catch you soon.
All right. We'll talk to you, Mitch. Take care. Have a great day. Frank, what he's talking about down there in Louisville, Mississippi, I'll never forget back late July in 91, Boyd Wade and I get down there late at night and stayed at the, oh my God, the Greaser Inn, whatever it was. It was horrible. They had, we got in there about midnight, we were doing a triathlon, and you went to Lake Titicaca there in Louisville, Mississippi. And it was a half-mile swim, and we saw the film crew was out there. All the cameras were there. They were filming Creature of the Black Lagoon Part 2, and the water was so dark you couldn't see your hands, and it was dark when we swam because it was 6 o'clock, and we weren't paying attention. And the bell went off. We had to run out there, and you swam a half mile, and you knocked out 28 miles on the bike, real hilly there. And you finish up at the Neshoba County Fair, where they have the horse, buggy races. And you do 2 laps around it, and it's really cool. It's called the Heart of Dixie Triathlon. It is a great one, and that's Neshoba County, and that's where Jarquez Hunter, a little bit of trivia here on Savant Monday, is the only player from Brian Harson's first recruiting class from February of 21 who's still on the Auburn roster. So Auburn basically has been on probation for the last 3 years, the end of Gus and 2 years of Harson. But I love your honesty and your commentary about what's going on. For the record, we all know we're not attacking A&M fans, and it's not everybody in the administration. It's the people that are doing it's a consistent cabal of stupidity. Hey, Frank, let's pay some bills. We're going to take a quick break. I want you, when we come back, Yancy Porter's supposed to be joining us, Rebel Yell Hotline, and I know he's on a long call to do with the show tonight. So, but anyway, we got a lot to talk about. There's no shortage of content. There never is. I like to say we always leave every 2-hour show 6 days a week gasping for air because there's a lot to talk about. Kelly Leak, Frank, and Mitch speaking the truth. That's right, your truth brokers. Okay, we'll be right back with more after this.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-city exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
Strengthen your seed zone this spring with quality tillage equipment from House Industries. Located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, House Industries specializes in manufacturing superior equipment that will minimize your downtime and keep you working in the field. To ensure the highest quality control, all design, fabrication, and testing takes place in a 99,000 square foot manufacturing facility located right here in the heart of the Delta. Locate your nearest House equipment dealer online at houseindustriesinc.com.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
All right, Rob Browne back here with you. And, Frank, I like that chair. That's a pretty cool image. The empty chair formation here on sidelines on this Monday morning. I just know every Aggie fan that I know loves their school, but they don't have control. They're not the ones making these decisions. And it's funny, Mitch mentioned that Connor O'Gara is going to be on the show, and we love Connor O'Gara. He'll be on the show with us later this week, Saturday down south. And I mean, Mitch, Mitch is writing. I mean, Mitch has probably been to 450 games, basketball, football, baseball, over the last 4.5 years. Mitch is getting out there and he's putting his opinion, his feelings, his thoughts out there. Go to the MitchDavisShow.com. It's well worth looking at. There's a great line in that song by Hank Williams Jr. If you don't like Hank Williams, you can kiss our ass. He goes, if you don't think what they're doing, if you don't think what they're doing was worth it, you're wrong. You got to have these young writers, Frank, need to express an opinion like you. You're a successful businessman. So is Rhonda. And by the way, Frank and I were counseling one another during the Iron Bowl Saturday. And, and Yancy Porter called me. I felt like I was being treated by a specialist because I was mad when Auburn lost, but I was like, I got a lot of friends, Alabama fans, and I love them. I mean, I base what I think of a school on the friends that I have of that school. I've always followed LSU because that's where my dad was going until a month before he got into Auburn. And, he was going to be a preferred walk-on kicker. Who knows, Frank? But I've always listened to 870 WWL, John Ferguson, Jim Hawthorne for all those years. And now, you've got a new guy. But all these schools, I try to tap in and drill down and get into all these schools that we cover. It is so much fun to listen to a game on the radio. But, Yancy said, Rob, give Freeze, a little bit of time. He goes, next year, y'all are going to win at least 9 games. Great days are ahead. And I look at what happened to LSU. Bud Ritchie from Alexandria, former assistant dean of student affairs, Dean Wormer, down at LSU. It was at Rhodes College. Great Sigma Nu here in Memphis. I know him. I love him. He's incredible chef. About every 3 words when he's cooking on the big pot is "I." And then I think about Pierre T. Landash, my friend who's from Baton Rouge but grew up south of Venice, Louisiana, and they sent me a comparison last night. And it's Jaden Daniels, it's Michael Penix Jr., and it's Bo Nix. It's their numbers. And it's comparing those 3 for the Heisman. And I'm going to go back to what you said. And I got to give you credit for this. LSU without Jaden Daniels is probably 6-6. The defense this year, it doesn't matter. I'm just looking at Jaden Daniels' numbers. And, he leads the SEC in passing, and I think he's second in rushing. I need to look at the update to see if he's not first, but Frank,
he was first going into last week. I don't know what he is now. He first in passing. But I'm gonna look at the updated stats right now, and I want to see where he ranks. Here we go. Now we're gonna look at leading passer in the SEC. Jaden Daniels, obviously, 3,812 yards. Carson Beck, pretty damn good one, boys, 3,495. Now rushing. Cody Schrader. What a story that guy is. Great kid.
1,489 yards, leads the SEC in rushing. Jaden Daniels second at 1,134.
Correct.
Bo Nix and Penix are good. Jaden Daniels, I'm going to make an argument for him. He has as strong a case as Barry Sanders did in 1988. And I remember saying, if they don't give, he's earned it. He's not being given anything. That was Barry Sanders, the Heisman Trophy. They should just melt the Heisman Trophy and quit giving it out. Jaden Daniels, and I'm not saying this because you're on here, I'm just saying it because he plays in the toughest league in America.
Well,
he's the most valuable player.
And that's what a lot of people at LSU are saying. Look, Bo Nix left the SEC. Jaden Daniels came to the SEC. That to me is very powerful. He didn't shrink and go to a lesser conference. And we didn't know what the Pac-12 was going to be this year, right?
No.
He came to a conference to play against the very best and has put these numbers up. Going in, I think he now has, this is for over 20 yards, a touchdown, over it's either 20 or 40 yards. Jaden Daniels went into the game with 20 touchdowns of over, well, I think it might be over 40, I think. Don't quote me. I think that was the number. And Bo Nix had only 17 completions over that number. Jaden Daniels had 20 touchdowns, added another 3 in this game. Were that length.
Yeah.
I mean, when you're doing video game type numbers and you're doing it against one of the toughest schedules, LSU's schedule this year was a beast. Yeah. A beast, like it always is. You had the West and you had Florida State, who's undefeated and going to probably be in the national championship playoffs. So you had him doing these numbers against the best talent in the world in college football, and he pulled these numbers off. Bo Nix is a great competitor. I watched him play the game 3 seasons ago at LSU when he did what he did, and I was very impressed by that, right? He beat LSU single-handedly on that night for Auburn. But I'm telling you, and Penix, by the way, I watched the last drive of Penix in Washington against Washington State. He shouldn't get it just for that drive alone. There was 2 passes that should have been intercepted and 3 that could have. These Nix and Jaden Daniels have separated themselves from everybody. Those are the 2. Those are the 2. And I think if you really look at what Jaden Daniels has done, some things that have never been done in college football before, I think he's the one that's going to be hoisting the trophy. I really do.
Yeah, and I'm going to tell you this. This is what Pierre Landash and Bud Ritchie sent me this. It's an unbelievable comparison. And I don't know if you've seen it. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to send it to you via the marvels of modern technology when my phone unfreezes in just a second. But when you look, you're talking about a Cam Newton type year. Yeah. Those are the kind of numbers that Jaden Daniels is having. And, he's a quarterback made an 85-yard touchdown run. The only other guy that does stuff like that is Cam Newton. I mean, sure. He and neither one of them had a great defense. Auburn had Nick Fairley, and they had some Josh Bynes. They had some pretty talented players, but without Jaden Daniels, that's the real deal. Yeah. Now we know that Paul Hornung, we weren't around then, won the Heisman Trophy in 1956 on a 2-8 Notre Dame team. He's a hell of a player. But without Jaden, you have to say this. I think Oregon wins 10 or 11 without Bo Nix. And I think Washington wins a bunch without Michael Penix Jr. You know Correct. What Michael Penix Jr. transferred from? Indiana. Yeah, wow. And Bo Nix, I love him. He's an Auburn grad. Bo had 3 years in the SEC. And his best plays were his busted plays. Yeah. I mean, Jaden Daniels. But Bo is a hell of an athlete, hell of a competitor. But I'm just saying this year, what's the Heisman? What is the Heisman for? What's it for? What is it best really
player.
For?
The best player. And RG3 said it on our broadcast. And look, don't think it wasn't lost on it that Jaden Daniels went up there and in the post-game announcement talked about RG3 because RG3 also won it on a 3-loss team. In fact, like I said, I think you should give it to the kid because our defense was that bad and we've have 3 losses. That's not his fault. He doesn't work on that side of the ball.
Yeah. So let me. This is an interesting one from Kerry J. Bo Nix didn't shy away from the SEC. That's BS. He was run off from Auburn and went to Oregon because I agree with that. He could not stand being in the same room with Brian Harsin. I love the guy.
But that's the results, though. That's the results. 3 years. I'm not saying he ran because he did it on purpose. Yeah. I'm just saying what he's doing is against a much less defenses. Look, I don't care how good the Pac-10 that they've spit out two teams that could be in the college playoffs. You cannot compete Pac-12 defenses against SEC defenses for talent, speed, strength, getting to the corner. You can't. I'm sorry, you can't.
Yeah.
And anybody that says that is disingenuous.
Yeah.
What
well,
if a quarterback in the SEC puts up numbers like Cam Newton did, and like Jaden Daniels did, and like Joe Burrow did? Let me tell you something. They're going up against NFL style defenses, NFL caliber defenses. You don't have that in the Pac-12. You don't have that in the Big 12. You don't have that. That's not what SEC defenses are. A different breed. Ask any coach. Ask any analyst. Ask any draftnik. Ask Mel Kiper. Ask Ask one of them. That what you got in the SEC. You don't have Takeo Spikes or Howard Perkins Jr. running around out in Cal or Stanford. Are you kidding me?
No. Yeah, let me tell you what. It's really good, and I agree. Listen, Kerry is a very smart football mind. I mean, and we've had him on the show as on part of the round table. Just when we bring some guests on, and I need to do that more often because we've got some really smart listeners and viewers. And I think, obviously we do this as a live show, but it really gets blown up when it goes into the podcast. And we're lucky we've got a lot of listeners. But I will say this, this is some good comments. I agree about Nix and Daniels being the top two. I think Daniels is the best in America. Probably should edge out Bo for the Heisman. And nobody's saying Bo was run out of the SEC. All we're saying is look at the results of the 3 years. But he had Gus, who couldn't develop a quarterback. If you came ready, with no assembly required, I mean, just flick the on switch, Gus could win with you. Nick Marshall.
The vest didn't have enough bandwidth to make you better, unfortunately.
That's right. And so, Bo Nix is a hell of a player. But again, those defenses in the Pac-12 are nothing compared to the defenses in the SEC's been down this year. We have had Houston Nutt. We've had Jackie Sherrill. A lot of really smart coaches on this show, and they will tell you. But I'm just looking at Jaden Daniels, and, in every game, he makes a difference. Look, he had no defense in the biggest three games. Yeah,
Rob, I haven't seen anything like it. I saw the kid. I went to most of the games this year, and what I didn't go to, I watched it on TV. I've never seen somebody take over a game like that. And when I'm telling you, he effortlessly would glide for 40 yards. I mean, effortlessly. And look, this Texas A&M game, perfect example. Dude, we were down 10 in the second half. He went into a phone booth and took off the Clark Kent gear and came out like, did you see the dimes he threw, dropped into buckets for those three touchdown passes to go ahead of Texas A&M and put them away? That was a window of opportunity of maybe 3%.
Yeah, that's a very difficult passes. I mean, and his ability to see the field and throw he's got incredible strength. He has,
and he really didn't have that last year when he got to LSU. That kid put on 15 pounds of muscle in the weight room over at the football facility. Yeah. I mean, he metamorphosized himself. Let me tell you something. He's in the Hurts category, in my opinion.
Yeah.
He's going to play on Sundays.
Yeah. Yeah. He will, and so will Bo Nix. And Bo Nix.
Absolutely. I hope Bo Nix goes to New Orleans.
Yeah.
That's the type of quarterback we need in New Orleans.
Yeah, because he's a warrior. And look, the thing is, when Bo was in high school, I think he almost went to Ohio State because, his father's a legacy at Auburn. And that is difficult, man, for everybody to come up and go, you're Patrick's son. And he gave 3 years, but God, what he had to put up with Gus. And then he had to put up with 2 years of Harsin. I mean, who wanted to be in the room with Brian Harsin? Went to the Joseph Stalin School of Charm and Wit.
Harsin was a disaster of epic proportion for Auburn. He put Auburn, in my opinion, back 2 or 3 years. You got to give Freeze the time to come in and recruit. Freeze will right the ship. I have no doubt in my mind about that. I saw that on Saturday, right? It's a damn shame Auburn didn't win that ball game. Damn shame. But you see the trajectory of what's happening with Auburn once Harsin got out of there. He didn't understand it. He didn't understand the recruiting game. He didn't understand the South. I mean, you got to understand the South to be able to coach in the SEC.
Yeah. Hey, by the way, let me throw something to you. Did you read Dan Bongino's comments? He was at the Iron Bowl. And that's what we understand. Look, you saw after that game, I mean, there's a heartbreaker for Auburn. But, you know, you look at the trajectory and you look at if you're looking at a stock, there are certain movements, the 200-day moving average and whatever. Yep. If you're looking at Auburn, the buy signal is screaming at you, saying, buy Auburn. You know, it's going to be if you beat Auburn this year, you did it, but you're not going to get an opportunity to beat Auburn, to play Auburn with a depleted roster. What Hugh Freeze did with a bunch of ragtag, you know, just kind of the orphan brigade, you know, portal kids. They're not misfits. I mean, they're all Division I players, but he took a bunch of guys. Most of them didn't know each other until he put them in there to practice. And I think the best thing that I've seen is, look, you want a locker room full of guys that are upset after a loss. You want a bunch of guys that are smashing their heads through the lockers and punching holes in the wall. I want a locker room full of guys like that because I know that in the offseason, in January and February and in the spring and in the summer and those hot mornings at 5 a.m., they're going to get up on their own. You cannot be told to be great. It's got to happen organically.
Great.
Got to come from within. All right, let's do this. I see Franz Beard over there warming up in the green room. He's ready to get on here with Brother Theodore.
I got to get to work. Listen. I love Franz. I hope my boy Buddy's doing well over there. Y'all had Florida State on the ropes. I hope y'all give Billy, for y'all's sake, I hope y'all give Billy Napier the time. I hope there's not a rash decision over in Gainesville because I think Billy Napier deserves it. But I'm telling you, that game against Florida State was one. I went right from Alabama, Auburn, the Iron Bowl, to watching the Sunshine Showdown, and that was great football on Saturday night.
It was hair pulling time, though. You know, you go through this and you look at Florida's special teams blunders, and Florida wins that game despite having very limited offense. If not for the special teams, they go down on the first drive, and what happens? They miss a field goal. So it should have been 3-0 there. We have a special teams blunder that costs us a field goal at the end of the game because our left tackle gets a hold, and he did hold, and so all of a sudden instead of kicking maybe a 32-yard field goal, we're kicking a 52-yard field goal, which is
a totally different animal.
Yes, you got it. You got it.
Hey, Frank, I know you got to go. We got to, Franz, hold those thoughts. Frank, you got to get to work. Brother Theodore, love the commentary. Fire people up on Monday morning's my favorite day of the week. You know why? Because you can get ahead because most people are laying down.
I love my Aggie friends. Listen to me, the fans over there, y'all deserve better. And you know what? Take matters into your own hands. Get the power brokers out of the room that are not looking out for the best interest of Texas A&M. They're looking out to line their own egos. Get them out of the room. Get them out of the room.
Well, they just made a bad hire. I got to tell you what. They say, they say, well, we want to be more. We're not an 8-4 program. Well, guess what?
You are what you are.
You try to hire Mark Stoops, which is an 8-4 guy, and then you go get Mike Elko, who's going to be an 8-4 guy. You got all this money. You got enough money to spend $77 million to fire one coach, which tells me you got all, as they say, only God, the Longhorns have more money than the Aggies. And,
You're right.
And you got all this money, and there are coaches out there you could have gotten They could have gotten Dabo. They could have. Dabo would have taken that job. Can you imagine Dabo Swinney at Texas A&M?
Yeah.
You think Mike Elko is scaring Steve Sarkisian and the Longhorns? They're sitting there going, "Oh boy, this is like shooting fish in a barrel." You know,
they're so delusional. They actually thought they were getting Kirby Smart because there was a lot of fire where there was smoke. It's insane.
And Texas thought they were going to get Nick Saban years ago. Hey, we got to take this quick break. Frank, be back on with us later in the week. Great stuff. Absolutely love it. Okay. Hey, Franz, hang on. Go Tigers. Hang on through the break. We'll be right back. Hour number 2 is ready after this.
Unbelievably, every 2 minutes in our community, a child is either bought or sold for sex. I'm Ari Dickey, board member for the National Anti-Human Trafficking Coalition. Join me and millions of others in our fight against human trafficking and for its victims by helping to educate the most vulnerable among us, our middle and high school students. Go to nhtcoalition.org, become a partner, and help keep our families safe, because none of God's children are for sale.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-city exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
Strengthen your seed zone this spring with quality tillage equipment from House Industries. Located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, House Industries specializes in manufacturing superior equipment that will minimize your downtime and keep you working in the field. To ensure the highest quality control, all design, fabrication, and testing takes place in a 99,000 square foot manufacturing facility located right here in the heart of the Delta. Locate your nearest House equipment dealer online at houseindustriesinc.com.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
All right, Rob Browne back here with you, man. What a fun show. I like it. Pat Cornelius over in North Georgia. Remember the great scene in The Godfather, Al Pacino talking to his brother Freddie? You never open your mouth until you know what the shot is, you child. That was in reference to something that Frank Duffy and Mitch Davis, we had a lively first segment. Frank was doing his best job to imitate the legendary, one of my favorite characters Letterman used to bring on back in the days when late night TV was funny, or not all political. It's not even funny now. It's so bad. Brother Theodore, one of my favorite characters of all time. Brother Theodore was just a phenomenal character. But and let me say this, Franz, God, there was so much good football over the weekend. Watch the Gators. You can just see they've got to reload in recruiting, just like Auburn does. But those, I don't know. I can tell you what I saw was Florida State didn't have their starting quarterback, and neither did Florida.
Yeah.
So that's what are you going to say? But that was a hell of a game, hell of a rivalry. And I think that, Florida, though, it's hard to believe that you can't win big every year at Florida. When they're doing it right, they're an elite program. We know from 1989 to 2009, they were the winningest program over that 20-year period in all of college football.
Oh, yeah.
From 1936 to 2004, the winningest program in all of college football was Tennessee.
Yes, indeed. Bob Nealon.
Yeah. So anyway, got a lot of questions coming in here. And let me ask you this real quick, because Franz, You're very smart. The Heisman Trophy. You know, Bud Ritchie and Pierre T. Landash, two friends of mine, sent some really good stuff to me about the Heisman Trophy, the comparison between Jaden Daniels, Michael Penix Jr., and Bo Nix. Now, ironically, all three of these guys are transfers. Jaden Daniels transferred from Arizona State. Michael Penix Jr. transferred from Indiana to Washington.
Yeah.
And Bo Nix transferred from Auburn to Oregon. And Bo Nix is a hell of a player. I just think he couldn't stand being in the same room with Brian Harsin. And he didn't feel like that his future in his career was going to be, you know, as good as it could be at another place. So Kenny Dillingham, who'd been with him for a year at Auburn as offensive coordinator, was at Oregon, and it made it easy for him to go out there. But I do think the Heisman Trophy winner, first place, Jaden Daniels, second, Bo Nix, third, Michael Penix Jr. That's how I'm ranking them. What about you? And then I know you got a lot to talk about.
Well, I would say those three, but I think that you also have to put Marvin Harrison Jr. somewhere. He's got to be somewhere on some ballots. I mean, the guy's it's supposed to be about the best football player in the country. Now, healthy, the best football player in the country is named Brock Bowers. No question about it. When he's healthy, but he hadn't been healthy this year, so that's the thing that takes him out of it. Had he been healthy the entire year, his numbers, I think, would have been astronomically good. But would they be Jaden Daniels good? And this is what separates Jaden Daniels from everybody. You look at his numbers, and they're just absolutely phenomenal numbers. I mean, I think let me pull this up real quick. I've got it right here. Jaden Daniels has thrown for 3,812 yards, averaging 11.7 yards per attempt, 40 touchdown passes, and only 4 interceptions. He has run for 1,134 yards, averaging 8.4 per carry and 10 touchdowns. You look at that, and you got a guy. He's your quarterback, and your quarterback is going to get you a first down every play. That's basically what we're talking about here. He's going to get you a first down every play. Bo Nix is really good, but he ain't that good. Michael Penix is good, but he isn't that good.
Yeah.
This guy's numbers, I would dare say, let me see what Joe Burrow, I would compare him to Joe Burrow in 2019. Joe Burrow averaged 10.8 per, but he played in 15 ball games. But he averaged 60 touchdown passes in 15 ball games, 4 a game, which is not quite what Jaden Daniels did, but Jaden Daniels also ran the ball for 10 touchdowns. Joe Burrow that year only ran for 368 yards. So look at, a 6,000 yard season as opposed to what we got right now, which is on the verge of a 5,000 yard season, and that's in 3 fewer ball games. Jaden Daniels, as far as I'm concerned, you look at the stats, he's elite. He is beyond what the other guys. The other guys are really good, but it kind of reminds me of the Belmont Stakes in 1973. You had a lot of good horses there, but look at what happened. Secretariat won by 31 and a half lengths. The other horses were good horses. They just weren't Secretariat good. And I think that's kind of what we've got going on right now. I really believe that's what we got going on right now in the Heisman Trophy race. You got one great guy and a bunch of really good ones.
Well, you're right. And Bo Nix is my number 2. And number 3 is going to be Michael Penix Jr. And Michael Penix Jr. did not follow his head coach from Indiana to Washington. That is not correct. Tom Allen was the head coach at Indiana, and 3 or 4 years ago, he was a hot name in college football. But that's not who he did. He just transferred to Washington.
He transferred to Washington because of his offensive coordinator.
That's what I'm saying. Offensive coordinator.
Jalen DeBoer went from offensive coordinator at
Indiana to head coach at Washington
to Fresno State, and he wins big at 2 years in Fresno State, and then he goes to Washington, and he brings Penix in.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. He wasn't head coach when he left Indiana. I know what happened. Yeah. Just want to make sure we correct that, because Franz, and I'm sitting here, I just was looking at this content that you put out this morning. Let me give you it's plug or whatever. Thank you always for coming on here, but damn, you were putting out unbelievable content. And Brendan and I were talking a couple of weeks ago. He said, man, Franz is writing better than he's ever written probably in his career. You really are. I'm just looking at what you sent, just some points about college football. This is incredible. You know, most people, unfortunately, we don't get newspapers anymore. But I'm going to tell you something. Those people that are well-read, you know, the older you get, the more you better be reading, because it works your brain. It fires up those synapses in your cerebral cortex, okay? Franz, as you know, I'm not a brain surgeon. but you could be. But bottom line, this is great stuff. Again, I don't care if you're a Gator or not. If you love college football, college sports, subscribe to GatorBaitMedia.com. This is an old-fashioned, hard-working group of people. You know, Buddy, Martin, Franz Beard. You know, Brendan Martin is behind the curtain. This guy, you're going to be seeing him on this show more and more. He's brilliant. But, you know, and you've got Allie Peak Wilbur contributing, Ben Troop. Look at the interns. Did Aaron Andrews intern for y'all, or Laura Rutledge?
Laura Rutledge was with us when we were with Gator Bait. Brendan discovered her.
Yeah.
And we came on to we started a TV show there, and you know, I got to work with her, and first time I ever worked with her, I mean, I finished and I looked at Brendan and I said, we're not going to be able to keep her. She's too good. She is really and really and truly just absolutely ripped and shredded. I mean, but she worked with us, and of course, within like 2 years, she's working the Tampa Bay area there for Fox. Goes out to San Diego for Fox, does the Padres, etc. You know, I wish I could say that I had been the spark and the inspiration for her career, but you know, I may have slowed the process. She might have taken over the entire ESPN if it hadn't been for having to work with people like me.
Well, let me ask you this: she seems like a genuinely nice person to be around.
Mm-hmm.
Is that your assessment? Because I know you're a truth broker. You'll tell the truth.
Let me put it this way. She's one of these people that you would never know came from money. And she did. She did. You know, she was from a family with money, but you'd never know it. Some people are just so natural and so comfortable in their own skin that they don't have to, you know. New Rich goes out there and buys the Lamborghini, you know. Yeah. The old Rich sit there and say, well, looks like we got to get us a minivan because mama got to have room in the back of the captain chair so she can snore when we're driving. Yeah. You know. But this is kind of, you know, Laura's that way. She's got 2 kids now, loves them both. Married to Jeff Rutledge, who's a former Alabama baseball player who made it to the major leagues. and played, I think, 5 years in the majors. But
Yeah.
that's Laura's husband. But she's an amazing talent, and she is as easy and comfortable to be around in person as she appears to be on the set. She's just that kind of person.
Well, I'd love to get her on the show. I mean, because I've seen her, I watch her interact with people on SEC Network, and she's at ease. And again, with all she's got going for her, there are people with similar circumstances that are, hard to be around. And I just think she's great for college sports, and I hope we don't lose her. I know the NFL is trying to get her. Like I told Roman Harper on the show last week. I said, it was or 2 weeks ago, I said, I just hope you don't get sucked away by the NFL Network. You need people to Keo Spikes, Cole Kubelik. Man, I love Cole Kubelik. But what he took his whole family. He's got 3 kids. He's a super dad. I've had him on the show a few times, but he's got a show on the same time as we're on. But bottom line, you just love the people that genuinely love the game, but more than anything, they love their family and their wives or husbands, whatever. But Laura Rutledge would love to get her on the show because I think she draws in a lot of people, and she a lot of our audience is women. And I always tell people about half the people at every football game are women, people's wives, girlfriends, dates, whatever. And we got something special. Hey, I like Pierre Landash. This is my man from down in Baton Rouge. Lives in Memphis now. I agree. Jaden Daniels. This is the Heisman. You know what? If we had Perry Mason in for the closing argument in the case, and you're Hamilton Berger, the district attorney, and Perry Mason says, let me just say to you, members of the jury, the judge, Jaden Daniels would start at quarterback at Oregon and Washington. Case closed. I rest my arguments. Objection! Overruled. Franz Beard. I'm McLaughlin. What about it?
Well, Jaden Daniels would. And can you imagine this? At Arizona State, they had Jaden Daniels, okay? They had Ricky Pearsall, who was at Florida. And they had Johnny Wilson, who was at Florida State, who, for people who don't know who he is, caught 39 passes, 596 yards this year. But 6'7", 237, and during his time at Arizona State, he caught, he wasn't used. He goes to Florida, transfers to Florida State. They figure out 6'7", 240 pounds, and can run a 4.4. You can play for us, and he does. I mean, FSU people don't realize FSU's got a great running game, and they are a running team that throws. They're not a throwing team that runs. And it pains me to say that about them, just like it pains me to say about Georgia. But you know what? They've done a great job in the portal, and they have recruited offensive linemen in their portal, and they've developed offensive linemen, and that's why they win games. They win games in the trenches. They got great defensive linemen. They got great offensive linemen. The play of the game with Florida, a lot of people might say that punt return by Keon Coleman, 34 yards, it really was a brilliant play and everything. But I'll tell you what the play of the game was. Play of the game is Florida's last offensive possession, and this is the microcosm of what went on. Damian George is playing left tackle for Florida, and Damian George is a quarterback that if you're Catholic and you're the quarterback, you do this because you're hoping that he at least impedes the progress of the unrushing defensive end. Jared Verse, boom, 2 hands into the chest. Now, Jared Verse gets credit for a sack. Damian George sacked his own quarterback because he got hit in the chest and goes back 3 feet and knocks in and takes down our quarterback. That's the play of the game. He had 2.5 sacks in that ball game, and he was constantly doing that, beating these guys, and just made life miserable. But he was the guy that made that game for FSU. And it brings into play a couple things I've written about. Florida's offensive line. Look at this, Rob. Since 2011, you want to talk about the demise of Florida football and how Florida football is where it is right now.
Yeah.
Since 2011, guess how many 5-star offensive linemen the Gators have signed?
2.
That's right. How many 4-stars? 17. That's out of 63. Now let's compare it to Alabama over the same period of time. How many 5-stars have they signed? 10. How many 4-stars? 37. So 47 of their 56 offensive linemen at Alabama are 4-star or better. At Florida, out of 63, 21. 1/3 versus what, 70, 75, 80%?
Correct.
You've got to have, and this is Auburn's got the same problem we've got at Florida.
Much worse.
When Auburn has had great offensive lines, which 2010 and 2013, they had great, and 2014 too, they had great offensive lines and they won ball games. But Auburn's in the same shape the Gators are in right now. Your offensive line, sometimes it shows, sometimes they're out having a picnic in the park. Oh, what, we're supposed to play football today? Well, look, just, New Mexico State. How can that same offensive line, which blocks against New Mexico State, that can't block anybody, you get 65 offensive yards against New Mexico State. How does that same offensive line go out there and push Alabama all over the yard? 244 yards on the ground. I mean, it is mind-boggling that this could happen. And it's what's happened in Florida. You take that in the special teams. Florida should have scored first. It should have been at least 3-0 there. They get a touchdown, a field goal. They get a safety. At that point in time, it should be 15-0. And toward the end of the half, Montrell Johnson breaks off a 50-yard run. They end up they should have been. Then the next play he gets 14, but it gets called back. Why? Damian George again. It's a recurring theme. Damian George is called for a hold. He tried to tackle Jared Verse, and he tackled him for sure, but he got flagged for it. And all of a sudden, instead of a 32-yard field goal at the end of the half, you're looking at a 52. So Florida could have been ahead 21-7 at the half. What happens? It's that's the story of what's going on here. Is coulda, woulda, shoulda.
Yeah,
but
it's tough. I mean, you mentioned these offensive line statistics. Nobody's done a better job of chronicling Auburn's demise on the offensive line than Jason Caldwell. You look at these 4-year cycles when Georgia and Alabama and LSU were signing 18, 19, 20 offensive linemen over a 4-year cycle, and Auburn's got 8 or 9. You can't compete with that half-ass approach. And that's the kind of stuff. Hugh Freeze, what he did this year with arguably my friend Chuck Oliver, Southern Sports Today over in Atlanta, said the largest, deepest, widest talent gap in the last 40 years between Auburn and Alabama is what you're seeing right now. And if you're an Auburn fan, you've got to be encouraged by the fact that you snatched defeat from the jaws of victory Saturday. I mean, arguably, Kevin Skarbinski's right. Bruce Arians calling that pass play in the 97 Iron Bowl to Ed Sissom He was hit and fumbled, and Auburn recovered and won the game 18-17 on a Jared Holmes field goal. He's now been replaced as the worst play call in Iron Bowl history. It's now only rushing 2 and playing patty cake there. I mean, and one of my friends said, do what the NFL does now. Okay? Rush 4 and put 7 guys back on the goal line.
Well,
I mean, Auburn, honestly, they played their hearts out in that game. There were hundreds of recruits there. There's no better atmosphere in college football. I mean, you saw Walker White, Auburn's 4-star quarterback, the top player or 2 in Arkansas, was there with his wish list of the guys he wants to sign in this Auburn class. And Auburn's going to try to flip Cam Coleman from Phoenix City. In the end of the day, Cam Coleman lives 30 minutes from Auburn. He's been committed to A&M since July 1st. I think he ends up signing with Auburn. I think Auburn's going to go after several more. Yeah, I think there's – but Auburn and the Gators are both in very similar situations. Fanatical, rabid fan bases that are starved for success. This stuff goes in cycles, Franz. You know it, I know it, and everybody out there knows it. Question here from Rob Anderson down in Valdosta, Titletown. You've been to Valdosta, Franz.
Oh, yeah.
Will Billy Napier hire special teams coach and offensive coordinator? Because, look, I like Billy Napier. Personally, I like him because of his story. I don't know him, but his father coached from a wheelchair. That tells you how tough, hardcore, and you talk about blue-collar Billy. I love that story. He's from North Georgia, and he went to Furman.
Yeah. Chatsworth, Georgia, which is up around Dalton.
Yeah.
He went to Furman and was a terrific Division I AA quarterback.
Yeah.
At Furman, and then starts his coaching career as a grad assistant, and his first assistant's job was for Buddy Pugh at South Carolina State.
Okay.
So yeah, he's a guy that's worked his way up.
Yeah,
through the ranks. Nobody gave him anything. He worked his butt off to get there. We need a special teams coordinator. But as Graham Hall put on the Florida 24/7 site, Graham Hall, terrific young writer. I give him a plug for this. But he points out that in 2020, Billy Napier, having seen the light in 2018 and 2019, hires a special teams coordinator. And what happens then was all of a sudden Louisiana goes from being really good to being really, really, really special. In 2020, they go 10-1 against the schedule. They beat Iowa State in the first game at Iowa State. Shocked the world with that. The only game they lost that year was to Coastal Carolina, which had a great team. I think Coastal may have run the table that year or come close to it. They beat Appalachian State. They beat Texas San Antonio in a bowl game.
Beat BYU.
No, they didn't beat BYU that year.
There was one year, though, they did. Remember, BYU played at Coastal Carolina, and Coastal Carolina won the game.
They really had – but Billy transformed – Billy showed in 2020 that he is very capable of adapting. And the special teams got good all of a sudden, The punter Rice Burns, averages like 40 something yards of punt. Their place kickers were good, but the whole special teams changed. And what that showed me was that Billy could adapt at that time, and he's going to need to adapt now. The special teams blunders were a problem for Florida. You take the missed field goals and everything like we just talked about, but then you give out a situation where their guy takes a punt and runs a 61-yard punt and say, well, he outkicked his coverage. His coverage was there. The guy had a 5-yard head start, but it should have been nothing more than an 8 or 10-yard return, which with a 61-yard punt is phenomenal. But instead you get a 34-yard return.
Yeah. Hey, let me pause real quick and say something. Wes Moore was going to be on with us. Just texted me. He kind of had an emergency. He's on a remote, and they got a little technical issue they got to work out. Totally understand it. Don't worry about it, Wes. We love having you on. He'll be on with us next Monday. But we got, Franz, you and I got a lot to cover. Let me say something about Hewlett and Dunn Boot and Clothing Company on the historic square in Collierville, Tennessee. They're open right now through Christmas every day of the week, Monday through Saturday, 10 a.m. to 6 p.m., Sundays through Christmas, 1 to 5 p.m. 111 North Center Street on the historic square in Collierville, Tennessee. They've got the largest collection of duck heads you'll ever find anywhere. Pants, shirts, jackets, vests, you name it. They've got, well, they're the second largest Filson dealer in the southeastern United States. They've got their largest Filson order they've ever made this year. Hunting jackets, shirts, sweaters. God, they've got so much. Over 7,000 pairs of men's and women's boots. Cowboy boots for men and women, for kids, kids' toys, kids' toy guns with the orange cap on the end of it. You know, kids got to play. They've got Old South shirts, Old South button-downs, T-shirts. They've got Devil Dog jeans. These were designed by a World War I veteran Marine. If you wear a size 36, you wear a 34 in these. Automatically go 2 sizes down. It makes you feel good. Hey, they've got Schaefer Outdoors. Those are the wardrobe consultants to the crew on Yellowstone. You know that jacket Rip has? You can buy it at Yellowstone. The one that John Dutton wears on Yellowstone, the quilted ranch jacket, they've got that at Hewlett and Dunn. They've got Pendleton, great-looking button-downs, Ariat, Wrangler jeans. They've got unbelievable women's clothes out there. They've got dresses. They've got Dolce Vita shoes. Audrey bought several boots, recently. And it's unbelievable stuff out there. Hewlett and Dunn. Can't find a better clothier anywhere, and they will deliver. Go to the website, hewlettanddunn.com, and they'll ship the goods anywhere. Charles Hall, Laura Hall, great, great people. Raven, everybody out there. You walk in that store, it's like going back in time on the Andy Griffith Show, man. John Wayne would shop there. Clint Eastwood, Ronald Reagan, they'd all shop there. I know Franz Beard would, but you're looking for great stuff for Christmas or any time of the year, and check out the 50% off rack and those great-looking button-downs. They're the coolest shirts. Everybody will go, where did you get that rock mount, okay? Those are the shirts that Bob Dylan wears on stage. Elvis wore them. Ronald Reagan wears them. Robert Plant wears them. They're great. Rock mount shirts, button-downs. They're really, really cool. STS, they've got luggage. They've got Filson luggage, first class, and the best collection of socks. Those Hiawashi thermo socks and all, you can't beat them. Danner hiking boots, Vask, higher, light. You cannot do better anywhere. Friends, look, great content you're putting out. And you go back to the consistency. Steve Spurrier, the Zucker, and then Urban Meyer. Florida, when they get it together, just like Auburn, just like Georgia right now, like Alabama right now, it's great. You get it wrong, like Alabama did from 97 to 07, their fan base remembers it well. You had Bob Backrath, the athletic director there. He was tighter than a clam with lockjaw. Wouldn't let them spend any real money on athletics and facilities upgrades. From 97 to 07, Alabama went 8 of 11 years where they lost 5 games or more. They lost to Hawaii during that time.
Yeah.
They lost to ULM in Coach Saban's first year. Look, fans are crazy, delusional sometimes. But I got to ask you this. Are the Gator fans all in and the right people in Florida all in? Because I think Billy Napier will win at Florida. He has the resources.
Well, here's the thing is people are blaming Billy Napier for things that are 11 years in the making. And that's the time before he arrived.
Yeah.
Will Muschamp, look at all you gotta do is look at the linemen. Here's my chart here. Will Muschamp in the 2014 season, he signed 7 offensive linemen. This is his last year. Now, David Sharp ends up is a 4-star, winds up in the NFL. But then you have Taven Bryan. Taven Bryan gets moved over to defense. Okay, he's a 3-star. Now, I'm going to give you a name of some really wonderful human beings. Have no business being on a football field. Andrew Mike, Travaris Dorsey, Kavaris Harkless, Drew Savari, and Nolan Kelleher. Those are the other guys that were signed. Any of them ring a bell? They shouldn't, because none of them ever played more than just a handful of snaps.
Yeah.
You can't do that. You can't have 1 out of 6 actually make it on your offensive line. It's a developmental position. You come there when you're a freshman. It's rare that you could play on the offensive line, or as Urban Meyer has said so astutely, that if you are, the closer you are to the football, the more likely you have to be a veteran to be good at it. In other words, you better have a veteran center. You better have veteran guards and tackles. They're all close to the football. And this is where Florida has made its real blunders. Now, to his credit, Urban is bringing in, now mostly through the transfer portal, he brought in Osiris Torrance. I think Cam Waits would have been a really good player had he not been injured and he had to miss things. I think he was poised and ready. You're talking about 6'8", 375, a guy that can really move for that size. But he brought in Osiris Torrance here. He brought in last year, he had Keonta Goodwin, who I think would have been the starting right tackle this year, but his mama got cancer, and he said, I got to go home and be home with my mom. I haven't seen that he signed with anybody. Maybe he can come back at Florida. I don't know. But Damian George was a 3-star from Alabama. They told him, you can't play tackle. You're going to have to play guard. And he says, fine, I'll go to Florida and play tackle. And we discovered that he can't play tackle. He's a guard. But he had to play out of necessity. And this is the story of Auburn, too, is you got to win the game on the line of scrimmage. If you can't block people, you can't win. On the other side, if you can't tackle people, you can't win. Coach Nealand made Lord rest his soul. Coach Nealand said it so astutely. He said, no matter how offenses change, no matter how defensive schemes change, it's still a game of blocking and tackling. The team that blocks better and tackles better wins better. And Auburn and Florida are in the same situation. We don't block it. We haven't blocked and tackled in a long time.
Yeah, I mean, and it's frustrating because, you look at fan bases. Florida fans, like Auburn fans, are as passionate as ever. But how long? And this is, I'll throw this in as a comparison. About patience, and that is, how long does a medical school resident have to go through the residence training program? You do undergrad, 4 years of medical school, 5 years as a resident, maybe a year as a fellowship, and then you start to make some money. Because all that time when you're a resident and a fellow, you're making $45,000, maybe $50,000, maybe a year. And I'll tell you something disturbing, by the way, as an aside from that. I heard from a friend of mine. He knows an orthopedic surgeon very well one of the best in Memphis. He said, these young kids today that are coming out of medical school, when they're doing their residence, you know the drill, Franz. 36 hours, you may go nonstop without a break. Okay? All right? Think about that. And he said these kids are whining about it. They don't like being corrected. They don't like having to stay up all night. They don't like having to do this, but they want to be a doctor. This is what happens when you start letting a bunch of candy asses get into medical school and people that are not qualified. All non-hackers will be weeded out. It makes me sick. You know what I do? Again, looked at that picture when I was up in Clarksville in my brother-in-law's man cave, which is orange and white, Tennessee Vols all the way. There's a picture of him leaning forward with his M16 across his knees, and he'd been up. I said, how long had you been up? He said 60 hours straight in Fallujah fighting. And I said, when was that picture taken? He goes, well, we just got through clearing a house. How'd you like to have that responsibility going door to door? And I'm not talking about delivering God bless America pizzas and flowers. Okay. Those are the kind of people we need. And I'm going to tell you something. We offensive linemen, it's the same thing. You gotta be developed. And kids and look, I love what Frank Duffy, brother Theodore, said this morning. Once again, serial quitter Max Johnson is in the portal. LSU, now he's A&M. I love them. They all give the same speech, friends, every time they leave. I want to say my years here and getting my Aggie ring and the greatest thing in my life, blah, 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 blah. But I'm moving on as a graduate transfer. That Aggie ring that you got, it ain't going to open the doors that you think it is because you left in some of the darkest times that they're going through. I mean, that's what I'm going to tell you what, you watch on ESPN and so much of these people in their skinny jeans are just, they're okay with all this weakness and this softness. I'm going to tell you what, you give me a team and a locker room full of players that are crying their eyes out and smashing their lockers and stuff after a loss. I'll win with those guys.
Yeah.
But you have a locker room full of guys that are more concerned about their NIL deals than they are their fellow teammates, their coaches, and the school and the state they represent. They ain't going to do a damn thing. It's a jump ball with people like that. They're not going to get better. I want the people that it hurts to lose. Because if you're okay with losing, you're going to be okay with losing for the rest of your life. It starts now. And the adults in the room have got to take back over and quit letting 17-year-old unproven kids, the old saying, I don't want to sell the stock because I have too big of a tax hit. Don't let the tax tail wag the dog. Don't let the 17-year-old and NIL in the portal wag the dog, because you and Buddy Martin have said it best. Who owns college football? The fans. Take it back. And you know what? Fans can hit the portal too. And if we need to, let's boycott it and march on the SEC office in Birmingham. Get better refs. Fans, control it. Quit caving to weakness.
Well, you made a point about getting better officials, because the Florida State game was the perfect example of that. The play before FSU scores its first touchdown, great example. The quarterback, Tate Rodemaker, is rolling to his left. He's been flushed out of the pocket. He's being chased by Miguel Mitchell. Miguel Mitchell almost has Rodemaker in his grasp when somebody from FSU literally tackles him. Now, 3 feet away is an official, and it's a very simple thing to see that the guy's been tackled. But he makes his throw. Johnny Wilson appears to make a catch. Florida challenges it. The replay shows the ball wobbling and hitting the ground, and they still give him the catch. What happens in the replay? The replay booth is supposed to be as you would call it, the truth detector. It's the one that's supposed to decide it. they kept looking at it. They tried to find every angle in the world, whatever. It delayed the game for about 5 or 6 minutes. I have a suggestion, and I would, the next time I see Mr. Sankey, I'll make this suggestion to him. Set a precedent by setting up a rule that says that, okay, you got 2 minutes to make a decision. Okay, you do the replay. We're going to do it for 2 minutes. And if you can't make a decision in 2 minutes, then the play stands.
Yeah.
It's very simple. But you got two. And I think if they did that, I see a lot of blown calls. And I don't think you'd have as many blown calls. I think that would be a better idea. I think it's one of the things that would transform Florida football, not just Florida football, but the NCAA in football. Make it a universal rule. You got 2 minutes for instant replay. Can't figure it out in 2 minutes, then the play stands.
I'll tell you one thing, and I'm sitting here getting some really cool information right now. What I have, absolutely, about the college football championship. But Franz, man, I got distracted. I'll admit it. Just a big thing. Something just came into me from somebody out in Dallas that's listening to the show. Say what you said again just now, kind of Cliff Note version, because I was listening, and I apologize. I'm always listening to you, even if I have my head turned, because there's information coming in here nonstop during the show. But I want to hear it again.
Like I said, I think there should be a rule that you got 2 minutes. Any replay that's done by the booth, you got 2 minutes to do it. And if you can't figure it out in 2 minutes, then the play stands. But I think we've gotten to a point now where, he caught it, but his shoelaces were untied at the time, so it couldn't be a catch. We get into these technical things that I think you can make in so many instances, you can make a case for the opposite based on the angle. You see enough angles, you look.
Yeah.
All I want to know is, did he make the catch or did he not? In this case, the kid didn't make the catch.
Yeah.
So,
It's gotten to where it's almost like forensic files. You dread. Nobody wants to make a colonoscopy appointment. And it's these reviews. You're like, God help us, please, for the humanity of it all. But you're gonna get it. I'll tell you what. The SEC refs. One of my buddies, he's an Alabama fan down in Montgomery from Eufaula. After they missed that obvious face masking when the Alabama player on the kick return about pulled the head off of Brian Batey, he said that boy is going to be spitting tobacco juice out of the back of his head for the rest of his life. I mean, that was brutal. But there were some missed calls that I felt could have gone Auburn's way or Alabama's way, and there was questionable calls throughout the game you can make. But I think in the end they let them play. The refs have got to quit being such a big part of the game. Let the guys play football. If you want to soften it up, then by God, go put tiaras and tutus on the players. But the fans will not watch it. Make it safe.
Well,
the refs have got to get out of the way.
Here's the thing that the officials have got to do, and it's the same thing that should happen in basketball. You set your tone in the first few minutes. In basketball,
correct. Yeah.
Doug Schaus, who is a terrific official he lives over in Rome, Georgia. Great official. Calls about 120 games a year. Every time I see him, he's one of my friends, and every time I see him, I holler, "Hey, Schaus, you suck!" And he looks up at me and goes, "Yes, I do." And but one of my good friends, one of the things he says, and I wrote about it years ago, I did a column with him. You set the tone in the first 2 minutes. This is how the game's going to be called. And then it's up to the coaches to adapt to the way the game is called. But in the last 2 minutes, Do you change the way you make calls? Too many officials do. And it's the same thing in football. You need to set the tone early on, and this is how we're going to call the game throughout the game, and be consistent. I think Florida fans, Auburn fans have a right to be upset with officials. But here's the other deal. I think that if the officials were actually doing their job correctly as they should, I think that it would change the entire dynamic of the game. And I don't think they do that. I think the officials should set the tone and then call it that way. If you're going to call holding, call it throughout the game. Don't let somebody get away with it just because, you've got a quota of, okay, I got to throw 3 flags today. Okay, fine. I drew the straw that says that. If you're going to call, forget that stuff. If you're going to call holding, call holding. If you're going to allow holding, then let it be known that this is going to be allowed in the game, and then don't be selective and call holding then all of a sudden at the last second. Stuff like this.
It's tough to watch. It is. And I'd love to get Steve Shaw back on the show, the head of NCAA officials. We've had him on 3 times, 4 times. Been hard to get him lately, but love to get him. He is among the most requested people. And look, he's got a tough job. Okay. It's like the guy on TV that picks stocks. Everybody sees you. You cannot hide. They make you divulge in the interest of full disclosure. If you're talking about a stock on a Fox Business or whatever, CNBC, do you own shares in the company? And if so, how many? But the reviews are painful. Yeah, it shouldn't take that long. But that's why I'd love to get him on here, because let him talk about what's going on. He's the head of NCAA officials, long time, in the SEC, but he's got to do it for the whole country. Love to get his perspective. Look, man, we've run out of time. This has been great stuff. Catch Franz Beard on the Buddy Martin Show at night, 9 p.m. Eastern. Also, GatorBaitMedia.com. They're putting out daily great content. Gator or not, if you love sports, you love college sports, you want to get the big picture from a group that works harder than a dozen Mennonite farmers on Red Bull, you need to subscribe to GatorBaitMedia.com. And to all of our guests, Yancy Porter, this is what a Monday morning. I think a Monday morning show after Thanksgiving, people still in a food coma. Yancy's going to be back on with us tomorrow. And people forgot what day it was, but Wess, I know he had an emergency on that remote, but we'll be back tomorrow. We got a great show in store for you. Connor O'Gara is going to join us later in the week from Saturday Down South. Love having him on here. Got a lot to talk about. Most often we see the face of Christ in the least among us. We live in the greatest country in the history of the world, people. We the people make it that way. Whatever team you're a fan of, just remember this. Treat them just like you would your own family and your own business. You get beat, just like you don't get every sale, but you try to. You get back on the phone and you keep trying again and again and again. So until tomorrow, everybody go out and make great things happen. I'm going to hit this end button and we'll wrap it up. Franz, thank you so much. This has been awesome. See you tomorrow. Have a great one. We're out of here.